Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Nancy Buteau, and I work for National Disability Institute. We can already go on to the next slide.
Oh, sure.
Next slide,
Oh, am I
Dana.
supposed to pay attention?
Maybe. So National Disability Institute is in Washington, D.C. However, I live in Florida, and prior to working at National Disability Institute, I worked for, I believe it was 8 years at APD, Agency for Persons with Disabilities, which I'm sure many of you know. And then prior to that, I ran a supported employment program for the Arc of the St. John's for about 7 or 8 years. But now I'm at NDI, so very happy that we're able to be here. And I would like the two other presenters to introduce themselves. Sharon Giovinazzo.
Oh, wow.
And Heather Aiello.
So I'm Sharon Giovinazzo. I'm the president and CEO at World Services for the Blind in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're a residential rehabilitation facility that does vocational training as well as the blindness basics, all the comprehensive blindness things. And we'll talk a little bit more about why we're talking about the line that we are.
Right.
Heather?
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. I'm Heather Aiello, and I'm with the National Association of Certified Credit Counselors, also with the Society of Financial and Career Consulting Professionals, which Sharon is a board member of. And what we do is, actually, I was just talking to Mandy. Mandy's been through our programs, and she's wonderful. And she attended one of our conferences. And I get to vicariously live through people like Mandy. What we do is certify and train individuals to empower others in credit, finances. We all know how important finances are, and careers, and having that, knowledge is power. So having someone that can help you with the knowledge, not handhold, but empower you to get a financial plan, a life plan in order, understanding credit scores and all those complicated things that are part of finances, they really can become very simple as well. And that's what these individuals help you do. And she's been through our certification, and that we do that. And we also have the society where we empower you after. And Sharon's a big part of that too. And thank you so much for having us here. I really appreciate you coming.
So I'm going to give you a little background as we get started about how the three of us are doing this presentation together.
We're all sisters, right?
We are all sisters.
Are you
Registered
No,
sisters. Don't we all look alike?
Sisters.
They do to me.
You're both sisters from a different mother.
There we go, exactly. So last year at a conference, Heather came up to me not because I was with National Disability Institute, but she actually liked the color of the jacket I was wearing.
Yes.
That figure.
So we started talking just nonchalantly, and from there she said, well, where do you work? And I said, National Disability Institute. She was like, NDI. She then turns to Sharon and says, Sharon, Nancy's with NDI. Sharon lets me know that she read one of our reports, and she will tell you about this, and what it led to for her agency, and how her and Heather began working together. So it's amazing what small worlds can come together. So I'm going to kick us off by just talking about some things related to disability and poverty, because we're talking about the long run here, finances, and that somebody should not have to trade living on disability benefits or receiving disability benefits as a trade-off to have to live in poverty. It just doesn't have to happen. There are so many programs and resources that are out there. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people telling us about.
We don't know what they are.
Right, exactly. We don't know what they are. Social Security has a ton of things, but Social Security is not telling you any of it.
Right.
So it's hard. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Social Security is broke, right? They don't have
Resources.
They don't have resources. They used to have an outreach group that used to go out and talk about all the work incentives for people who go to work. That doesn't happen anymore. Now there's kind of a waiting list, and you have to have either had an interview in the last 2 weeks, or you're scheduled one for the next 2 weeks, then your priority, then you can go see somebody. So it's a broken system.
Your retirement account goes from $125,000 down to $22,000. You cash in your life insurance policies to provide for your kids, and that's where
and that's where we are. And you're absolutely right, and I'm so sorry about that, but that's what we are going to.
Next slide, Vanna.
That's here.
Oh. I'm gonna be on the rules.
So one of the financial challenges that we have up on the screen, here's a little financial snapshot, which is pretty scary, and I'm probably standing in front of somebody, no matter where I am. 1 in 9 adults have a disability, and out of those, only 1 of 3 are employed. So,
Oh, just say Heather.
Heather.
Pay attention.
People with disabilities 2 times more likely, okay, to have income less than $35,000. And I honestly think that that's shooting high.
Yeah.
So,
It is.
right, because most of the people that I know who are served through APD or who have developmental disabilities, they're not working at all. And they're getting that $771 each month, right, which comes out to roughly $9,000 and change a month. You're living way beyond the poverty level. But if you compare this to people who don't have disabilities, it just makes, it just, when you see that, it absolutely makes no sense. There's no reason why people with disabilities should be living like this and living in poverty. So we're here to hopefully change that. People with disabilities are also 2 times more likely to say that they couldn't come up with $2,000 in assets or $2,000 if they had an emergency. So, and luckily with Able now, there are things that are changing. There are other ways that people can save. I've been in the employment field for people with disabilities my whole life, and it was really, it was a struggle before Able to say, yeah, go to work, make as much money as you possibly can, but you can't save more than $2,000. You still can't do this, you still can't do that. If you live in a group home, you probably still can't pick what you're having for dinner that night. But yeah, go out and get a job and do all these wonderful things. So we've kind of started looking at things from a different angle. So it's not just the money piece, but it's how do we get people to that. Right. So for providers, it's that mindset, right? We can't have the mindset that going out and finding a job for somebody, 10 hours a week at minimum wage is then, oh, we wash our hands, we did good, done deal, right? Because we wouldn't allow that of our kids or our grandkids or other folks. So why folks with disabilities? Yeah, thank you. People with disabilities are almost 2 times as likely to use costly non-bank lending. Take a guess. Just tell me if somebody goes to like an Amscot or one of those irreputable places to get cash advances. What do you think the interest rate is?
About 20-30%.
20-30%? What? Any others?
70.
70%? Getting closer. 250 to 350%.
Oh my
You
gosh.
never get out of it, right? I still to this day keep saying I'm going to go to one of them and just take out $100 and then like repay it the next day, just to get the feeling, right, of what it's like. 300%. Can you imagine?
Oh, that's
So it turns into a vicious cycle. So part of what we do at NDI is make sure that people don't use those services. We work with banks and we try to establish relationships with banks where they're not going to charge if somebody can only open an account with $10. They're not going to get a fee, because people get feed to death too when you're poor.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, well we're gonna, sorry, fee for this, fee for bouncing a check, fee for that, fee for being poor. So
And if you don't have a balance of $1,000 in your accounts,
You get
Wells
monthly
Fargo will
fees.
charge you a monthly fee.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't want your account.
there you go. So my general rule of thumb is always go to a credit union first. I think that they're they're more lenient with stuff like that. And then, so we all know that economic impact does not just affect us financially, right? It affects our mental health, it affects our physical health. And what you see here is people with disabilities are 2 times more likely to skip medical treatments.
Yeah.
So, and I know somebody who's in that situation. And she has to make a choice sometimes. And I try to help her make the best choices, but sometimes her choice would rather be to, stock up on A root beer, no lie, and order pizza rather than go to pay the copay of $20 to go to the doctor. But my point is nobody should have to weigh that option, right? Nobody should have to say, am I going to treat myself to some stuff I like, or am I going to go to the doctor because I'm sick and I really need help. So, Heather, sorry.
Oh wait, I know, I'll make the right choice. I made the right choice.
So now we're going to get into some stuff that really affects credit. Certainly going to payday lenders and not being able to pay bills, that affects our credit. 31%, right? Almost a third of individuals with disabilities are late on their mortgage payments. So, and what happens when that happens? It affects your credit, right? Your credit score tanks, right? Because the first thing that the mortgage company is going to do is call up that credit company and say, hey, so-and-so's late. My credit dropped. I didn't tell you this because I thought Heather would yell at me. So Nancy tried to do the good thing and make all of her bills online, right? Instead of the paper bills coming, I try to get more organized, and I travel a lot for work, and for whatever reason, Delta wasn't reminding me that I had payments due. And I wasn't thinking, oh, hey, Delta hasn't sent me a bill, or I haven't seen, I just went about my daily, and then I saw my credit go down. I don't even remember how many points. And I'm like, well, what did I do? Well, lo and behold, it was because Delta reported me to the credit agencies because I wasn't, rightly so, right? I wasn't paying my bills. But it's just amazing how quickly, what you've been fighting for in terms of keeping your credit score at a good level can go down so easily.
I wouldn't have yelled at you.
Thank you.
You said you were going to talk about some of the changes even in the most recently about the percentage of, say, of your income. Like on a credit card, you're even making your payments on time, but if it's above a certain percentage,
Right.
That's
There's so many things that can affect it.
there are changes to that.
Yeah. But actually what our focus is about how credit plays into the employment strategy.
Okay,
That's
so
why
not so much the changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And
But we're
I
happy
think-
to talk after, especially her. Sorry. You can talk.
Heather's our credit guru. I just want to see where I'm at on slides, real quick.
Oh, I can go to the next slide. I can do this.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh,
so
you're
no,
done.
Yeah. So, but I didn't talk about that one, so just
You
go
didn't
back
talk
to that
about
one.
overdrawn checking
Right,
accounts.
right. So 31%, again, almost, we'll go back. Almost a third of individuals with disabilities report that they overdraw their checking accounts. So again, what happens there, right? The banks give you fees.
Yeah.
Do the banks report to credit agencies?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so it's amazing
Anybody
how
can does.
quickly somebody can be affected. So I wanted to just lay that groundwork. I think we kind of all know this, but what these two did really is the reason you're here. Because Sharon read the report that I got this from, and it's down here, right? The FINRA report is, you guys can all download it. You've all got a copy of the PowerPoint, so you can go online and look at it. But I'll pass it over to Sharon, who's going to tell you what happened when she read that report and how she got involved with Heather.
Thanks, Nancy. So for us, I run a residential rehab facility for people who are blind and have other disabilities, and our main focus is vocational training. So this was in 2015 that I ran across this report, and it's because I needed to come up with a program that was a good career choice for people who were blind and something that they could do with the technology and what have you. So I started doing a little bit of research, and I was like, credit counseling is this great thing, so I started to do research. And what it told me was that people with disabilities have a lower financial literacy than the general population. Why is that? 70% unemployment rate, high medical bills, living beyond the means that you have, because you have to. That's the only way that you're going to survive. So I found that publication that Nancy just alluded to, and it was, hi.
I'm shadowing you. I want to be like you when I grow up.
And so I read through this, and I was just absolutely appalled by what it said, and that entered into this whole journey as to what we needed to do. And what clinched that was about 2 weeks into my tenure at the agency that I run, I had a partner come from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and they just opened up a call center and they needed 100 people who were blind to work in that call center. It was under the Javits-Wagner-O'Day Act, and 100 people. They interviewed 700 people. They hired 15. So by a round of applause, how many of you are professionals here that work in the field? I don't hear any applause, so thank you. If you're waving at me, I'm not seeing it. So,
Clap as opposed to raising your hand.
right, as opposed to raising. So for those of you in the field, you know that the one thing used to be that it was a background check. That was the skeleton in the closet. You know, somebody would go through, you put them through all these services, and then they would be able to pass a background check. Well, now, if you can't pass a credit check, you're not getting a job. And so for a long time, you know, for employment, for people with disabilities, there was a piece of legislation called WIA. Now it's WIOA. They just have more initials. So it's the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And it actually addresses it because this is such a serious situation about how credit can keep you out of the workforce. And so then you take what the study proves with that, you know, the lower financial literacy rate. So 15 people, I was like, so we have a problem here. So why don't we just come up with a program and why don't we solve that problem? So I began the research, and Heather wasn't my first call. As a matter of fact, she was my last call. And I called these other places, and I was like, well, how can we put people who are blind to work becoming credit counselors? Because not only can we help our people who are within our population that we serve, but we can also help the rest of the world, and it's a great job. And we know 75 million aging baby boomers are retiring. There's not enough people to fill these gaps, and this is a great industry. So I started to make phone calls, and I started to do my research and talking. But the moment that I got Heather on the phone, I knew she was the right choice. We talked for like 2.5 hours, and don't tell anybody, but she was on her honeymoon. She had just gotten married. She was in the Bahamas. And I interrupted her honeymoon. But I had told her about all this stuff. She didn't have a whole lot of ideas about the disability field that we're in, and both rehab and employment and all that stuff. But she listened to me ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble. And there were some things that I said, these things are going to happen. And it's been a great partnership ever since. And so we're talking almost 3 years now that we've been a partner, and she's been an absolutely wonderful partner. We are putting people who are blind using adaptive technology. And I know one of the things on the slide says something about being what's the Great Equalizer? One, for my folks that we serve, for myself, it's simply technology. But that technology can also help you in this quest for bettering your credit and toward employment and all that. So you think about no matter what kind of a job that you're looking for, you can go out and apply to be a bag boy at Publix. I'm in Florida, I got Publix. I was hatched in Florida, by the way, so, you know. And if you fill out an application, you're going to fill it out online. And you know, there's certain things, it's not just if you get your name right and your address right, they're seeing how fast you can do this, how accurate you are at following directions and all that stuff. But this can also help you on the credit quest. You know, there's things you can monitor your credit. And there's so many things, and we'll turn it over to Heather, but we want to talk about some of the things of where there's threats and that can play into the employment factor of that and with the credit. I mean, you think about identity theft. You think about all the stuff that you hear on TV. And more than likely, those of us with a disability are more vulnerable than anybody else. You know, you think about, you know, the folks who are lucky enough to have moms sitting there beside them or a wife that protects them, but the ones in group homes. All the services that we access, I mean, they have all of our personal identifying information. I mean, and you can get some people in there that might be shady. You never know. And so those are things to consider. Did I have any more slides? I don't remember.
No.
Heather?
Yes.
Well, thank you. I'd like to introduce my partner.
Oh, yes. And it has been a wonderful.
It has been a wonderful.
And we'll continue to be so. We'll continue to be so. And as Sharon talks about, you know, the Great Equalizer is technology and also your credit score and the knowledge, the financial literacy knowledge. You save money. You plan your life, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Empowering individuals, and that's...
You're on the wrong slide.
I am?
Yeah, Vanna.
Okay. I'll be Vanna.
I can be a
I
Vanna.
am Vanna. Well, how can okay, thank you for putting me on track. How can financial and career coaching help you? Well, if you're dealing with high medical bills, you know, the Credit Inclusion Act, you know what? The Great Equalizer is finally the legislation starting to realize, the world starting to realize that a credit score, that 3-digit number means so much today. What do you need to have a credit check for?
Everything. Home, everything.
Everything. You get a cell phone, utilities, insurance. They actually did a study, and they said that someone with multiple accidents was less likely to get in an accident than somebody with a low credit score. Don't you find that odd? That's so your insurance rates are higher. You get better rates when you have a good credit score. They recognize it, and they're not looking at anything. It is actually not based on any variable sometimes, but what? That 3-digit number. And understanding how that 3-digit number was very important. And the reason Sharon and I started talking was, it was genius what she came up with, which was, she wanted to help the people at World Services for the Blind with their financial literacy. But then she realized there's to be proactive and get out there and help all the people in the world with disabilities. And I'm learning so much about this world, and it's really amazing, and I'm so happy to be a part of this. But a high credit score saves you money. You create a spending plan that works. And notice how I said spending plan, not a budget. Why do I say spending plan and not a budget?
It feels better.
Feels better. Feels good. I'm making a plan. Watch me go. I love that. So understanding money, behaviors, and relationship. And that is very important. But I'm going to stick more to the actual knowledge that you need to have to it gets very, actually, we could do an entire week on how your credit score is calculated. In fact, FICO...
You only have 30 minutes.
I only have 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys wanted to hang. but FICO, we don't even know the algorithm that they use. And then there's something like scorecards, but we're not going to get into all of that. But there's just some basic facts that you can do to keep your credit score high. And that's what? What do you think is one of the most important things you can do to keep it high?
Pay your bills.
Pay your bills on time. And use different credit. Guess what? Credit is not all bad. How many of you would have a home if there was a credit? How many of you would have a car? Right? Start a business. Very, very important. So understanding money behaviors and your relationship with money. Understanding how that can be a variable that plays. And when you work with individuals, and what we do is we train individuals that will help people like Mandy, help individuals with financial and career coaching so that they can empower them to be their own financial experts, right? You want them to be their own financial experts. And knowledge is definitely power. They become their access to specialized resources. Then you aren't using the payday lenders, right? You know that 300% is ridiculous. That should be illegal. That's what Sharon said earlier.
He's in
Should
jail
that
for
be illegal?
less.
400%? It's crazy. It's a lot of money.
Is there help for people out there that there's places that they can ask questions?
Oh, yes.
Is
yes,
there?
And that's who we train. And, to keep you from the predatory lending. There are services now, and we have lots of resources in it. If anybody ever wants any, I believe my email address is on the PowerPoint. Email me. There's and I could get you geographical resources for your particular area. Where you can get that starter card that's not crazy. When I taught at the college, the kids would go out, and this is back before they passed legislation that they can't do this anymore. They would go out, and they'd come back to class, and they'd have M&Ms, and they'd have T-shirts. And I'd be like, where'd you get that T-shirt or those M&Ms? And they go from the creditor, and they sign up for a credit card, and they charge them an application fee like you were talking about. All these nuisance fees. And by the time they got done with the fees, it was $300. Guess how much credit they extended to them? $300. So then you're over the limit, and then you get what? A fee. And then you pay, it goes and goes and goes and goes. So you want them to find out their own personal value proposition. What do they bring to the table? And that's also part of what we teach. Hope, self-efficacy. That's what we train individuals to assist people with. You've got to have the self-efficacy and you've got to have the knowledge, right? Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
All right, so we are going
I
to.
clicked.
Oh, how'd that happen? Oh, why good credit? Actually, Nancy talked about this. Go ahead.
Work
Boom, boom,
smarter,
boom,
not
boom, go,
harder.
boom, boom. Okay. So actually, good credit is important because you save money. But what we're here to talk about today is it's actually a barrier to employment, as Sharon explained earlier.
Go back one.
The,
I didn't know how many boop boop boops there were.
keep
So-
moving. I'm fine.
All right.
Keep moving. Also, with student loans, has everybody heard about that? They're talking a lot about student loans. And student loans are so complicated. We have an entire certification just on student loans. I'm not following. I
Okay.
don't know how to do that. But we have an entire, because it can be a barrier to getting student loans. And understanding student loans and how much money is out there that you don't have to pay back. How that works is you get it subsidized rather than unsubsidized. So that's a lot. But good credit is important, not just,
There we go.
there you go, go.
But I still messed up your first one.
Oh, that's fine.
All right.
You can actually even just keep going to the next slide.
They both like squirrels.
Actually, no, but if you see this, what does money affect?
Everything.
Every aspect of your life, your relationships, your job performance, your ability to get a job, and then it affects your health. And you talked about high medical bills. But you know what? The good news is they are starting to recognize that there needs to be more of a level playing field. So the Credit Inclusion Act is looking at, using utility bills. And the Ultra FICO score is looking at using your bank account. Utilizing rent. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But in fact, it ends up affecting your health and every aspect of your life. So when you as a financial career coach help someone, you're helping them with, when you come and you help them with their finances, you help them with every aspect of their life. And you give them the opportunities that they need. So what we do is we have certifications. Actually, Mandy's been through our certifications. And we train individuals on student loans, financial and career coaching, credit counseling. And we have the society, and we have an event coming up in Delray. For those of you that work in the field, we have it where you can come to an all-day review. Actually, Mandy, you've been to our big was there. But somehow the slides about credit.
Maybe
But I wanted to give you some resources about credit because you do have to be careful about the. Okay, well they're not in here. Everybody fill out one of these cards, and I will definitely send you resources. You have to be careful with things like Credit Karma because that's a Vantage score. And most of the time when you go to get a mortgage, they use a FICO score. So there might be 100 points difference. It's important to pull all 3 of your credit reports. On annualcreditreports.com, you can go and pull all 3 of your credit reports online for free every calendar year. And that's very important. And you can also get your credit score at a very low rate. And there's also Discover. Where you can actually go pull your FICO score even if you don't have a Discover card. Experian has where you can go and pull your credit. So you can actually go get all this information for free now. And that really levels the playing field for you getting employment.
Hey Heather, you know something? One of the things that that we might want to talk about is the resources that are available in the community, because so many of them are nonprofits that can help, because this stuff's really complicated to navigate.
It is.
And so talk about some of the places that are partners with NACCC that are in the community. I mean, it's everything from churches to
Right, Catholic Charities,
Goodwill.
CDC,
And I know a lot of people are interested, are involved with Goodwill.
Point. That's a good point. Financial Opportunity Centers. The City for Financial Empowerment is putting, I think they're up to 80 cities now, and they're putting them in every community, hopefully soon. Your United Ways. Mandy, stand up and tell us what you do.
Hello, everybody.
I'm Mandy Carey with Lee County Housing Authority in Fort Myers, Florida. And I went through Heather's class, several of her classes. And once we provide families, families with disabilities, elderly families, just all kinds of families with federal housing assistance, whether through our public housing program or our Section 8 vouchers. My program is a voluntary program where we work with families to actually get them off of government federal housing to where they are at an economic self-sufficiency level where they can rent on the private market or become homeowners. So the information that I have learned over the years through Heather's classes and certifications actually helps my families. And it's just a lot of great information because I'm teaching the families to be self-sufficient via their own contributions. And so like she said, if you have that power yourself, you're no longer as dependent on someone else, where you can go out and you have that ability to increase your credit score by understanding it. But depending upon where you live in Florida or across the nation, there are so many great organizations, hers being the number one. And like she said, there's just all kinds of information in your PowerPoint. But I just graduated someone from my class on Thursday. Each family has their own goals. And with this particular client, it took her 6 years just to obtain her GED.
Wow.
And so she didn't give up, she kept trying, and she got her GED, brought me back that certificate. I graduated her from the program and paid her an $11,000 check.
Wow.
That's just a little side thing from me.
Yay.
I think you just got somebody's attention.
And so, but now her ultimate goal is to move on to home ownership. So in the past several years, that was just one obstacle she had to come. But now that she does have her GED, she's able to get that better paying job, making more money, increasing her credit, being credit ready, mortgage ready, and her ultimate goal is home ownership. And I steered her towards Habitat for Humanity, and that's her ultimate goal.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just learn everything you can learn, be your best self-advocate, and you can do it.
But there's a lot of resources out there, is what you're saying, in the communities that will help with financial literacy.
Right.
You can
Call Heather.
Call me, email me. I'm gonna pass out cards and I'll send you information. I'll give you cards to fill out. Thank you, Mandy.
Who's Mandy?
Tell us what you do. I think you were saying you might.
Yes, my name is LaShondra Barnes, and I work for Division of Blind Services in Pensacola. I am a vocational rehabilitation counselor, so I start with the students age 14 in the transition program. When they enter high school, follow them through college, and I do have adults as well. One of the things that I have participated in the fair, and I went up to Bank of America, and he was offering financial literacy. And I said, you know what, I would really like you to come and talk to our students, because I think we should start with them when they're young to get them to understand it. And he told me he couldn't talk to kids.
What? Oh my goodness.
I was like, what?
Call my office and we will give you somebody to come talk to your kids. But you know, we're hoping that people like you will get interested because you have that relationship. And I just started working with Trio. And they work with, do you know Trio?
Yes.
And we're encouraging them because they're doing that. They're having people from the banks come in. They don't have a relationship with the kids or the college students and they come in and they do a seminar and everybody leaves and there's no follow-up.
Right.
So if you're working with that individual and empowering them, helping them with their career, helping them with their finances, helping them with their planning, we're hoping that individuals like you will get interested in being that resource for them.
Yeah, for all of our transitional age youth that come to World Services for the Blind, I mean, we do financial literacy. I mean, that's one of the marks in WIOA, so.
Right, exactly,
right?
Because we're doing potential.
And we'd be happy to do a Zoom conference with you guys and do it for your class, and we could do it on video. So, talk to me after.
Okay, I will.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to?
I sit on the COSA, which is a county organization of social agencies, and so we had a housing summit kind of along the same line of, in our area being St. Lucie County, and needing to do something about everything she described. So we're not quite as far ahead in that process, and that's what we're trying to develop. So we developed off of that summit, we then developed the very thing you're describing. We needed to find, and we didn't want to necessarily reinvent the wheel, but we wanted something exactly of which you're describing, that educational piece. So we have our county extension office, And there's a gal that they do have different entities that do that financial counseling, but it's still not tailored to the disabilities population enough.
And thank you, and that's what we're trying to do. I think that's what differentiates the organization I work with. Like, I just worked with FCADV, and they have economic.
What do those initials stand for? Heather?
Florida Council, Florida Council,
doesn't even know.
FC, Florida Council Against Domestic Violence. And their economic, I did do that, didn't I? Florida Council Against Domestic Violence. I got it. I'm so used to just throwing out the acronyms all the time. It's true. And they have economic justice advocates, so we tailored it to them. Now we're learning about this world because we want to address this world. We learned about TRIO. We learned, we try, and when we do our learning management system, we work with a lot of housing counselors, and we work with pre-bankruptcy counselors. We work with all different kinds of industries, and we try to make sure we do the best job for whoever your particular population is that you're working with. And how do we learn that? From you, or coming to these conferences, or people like Nancy. Nancy is an actual expert in the working with individuals on their supplemental benefits and.
Right, I mean, everything from those able
Yeah,
accounts.
talk about what you do. Actually, what you do is really interesting. Explain to them what you're doing in New York.
So, working for National Disability Institute, I'm really lucky because I have projects throughout the country, and they're usually a little bit different from one another. But what we're doing right now in New York City, Heather had mentioned financial empowerment centers, and they're scattered throughout Florida, but there's maybe in more of the metropolitan areas.
Right.
Like you'll find them in Orlando or Tampa or Miami. But they're usually run through the local municipality, and they provide free financial coaching, financial counseling services to anybody in the community. Doesn't have to be specific to disability, but what we're doing is training those coaches in Social Security work incentives and Social Security benefits, so that somebody who's maybe on SSI doesn't go into a financial counselor and say, hey, I want to save $10,000, and the counselor says, hey, that's great, let's get you towards that goal. The counselor will now say, okay, let's do that, but let's figure out the ways that it's not going to affect your SSI. So that's part of what I do. I also work with individuals just to have them understand Social Security work incentives and how they can go to work and don't have to worry about losing their SSI or their SSDI or their Medicaid or their Medicare. So that's
Hey, when you think about people going to work, I mean, who have disabilities, if you're on SSI, that first $85, woohoo, that doesn't count against, your earnings, and then it just all starts to go downhill. But it's always more lucrative to go to work than it is to be on the benefits. And so there's some gaps there. If you're on SSDI, a person who's blind can make $1,920 a month. A person with other disabilities can make, it's right at $1,000, I believe. But, if you're not way up here in this earning category, you end up with a cash cliff, and you kind of fall off of that cliff. It's like, all of a sudden I have this check, but I would have made just as much if I would have left my head on the pillow and stayed home and played video games. I mean, that's the reality of it. And so that's some of the things that legislation needs to change. That's some of the things that you guys work on at a grassroots level when you go in and, if you talk with legislators, you have a young lady over here that works for Division of Services for the Blind. And, they vote rehab, no matter which side of it you're on, if you're on the general side or the blindness side, they have benefits counselors. And so this is something that, one of the goals, I think, of the three of us is to make sure that these services are offered, just like benefits counseling, that you can go in and say, okay, this is what you can earn, this is what will happen if you earn over this. This is what you can put in your ABLE account. This is what you can spend that for. And so those are definitely value-added services. And, there's so many systems that we deal with as people with disabilities. And it's one of those things that we, and they're all fragmented. They're all in their own little silos over here. And if everybody just started talking to one another, the world would be a better place. And so that's why people like us are out here with big mouths to say, hey, something, you're broken over here. Or DSB, why aren't you talking to the General Rehab Agency? Or DSB, why aren't you using the financial literacy? Or whatever system that we're a part of. I mean, I know there's a lot of folks that are here that's had to have like van modifications. You think that if you have to spend all that money in order to do that, first of all, you have to go out and buy the van. if you have bad credit to do that, or you don't have a job and all you have is your Social Security, how are you gonna get all that stuff?
And furthermore,
I knew somebody would pipe up there.
if you're on APD, and God love them, we couldn't exist without them, but if you're on the waiver, guess what?
They don't pay for the modification.
They said that you cannot, but I'll tell you guys, they said that they won't pay for lowering the floor. I lift a 150-pound chair every day. I lift.
And how old are you?
I'm 79. I will be 80 in 6 months. My husband is 86. He will be 87 in July. My daughter adopted is age 20 from Arkansas. Whoever's from Arkansas. My boy, who is 25, adopted from Arkansas. Got them both at Little Rock Children's Hospital. Take them home to die. If they live, they'll be vegetables. He's on the Florida Youth Council, and she's here in that cute little hot wheelchair.
Woo! Success!
Her chair only weighs 37 pounds.
You know, those Razorbacks are pretty tough. That's what it is.
I know. We eat lots of pig. But, well, we don't anymore because we can't afford it. Retirement income account, our thing has gone down from over 200,000. I think I have 22,000 left. And we cashed in the life insurance policies to pay medical bills for the kids. We need help. Went to Social Security and they get too much SSDI. I'm not gonna gripe, okay?
Right.
They get
Right, you make too much.
they get $953 a month, and theirs is based on Bob's income. Because
Right.
when we adopted them, they got Social Security based on him. He's blind, okay, and he has cancer, and maybe here 6 more months, I hope. But anyway, you know, God's been good to us, and but I'm so tired of fighting the system.
And you know, and the system is hard to fight.
It is.
It really is. And you know, she told me her story earlier. But you know, there's over 13,000 people, families and people with disabilities registered here. And you know something, that's 13,000 stories. Everybody has a story who's at this conference. And everybody has that side of their story that is just that nightmare side. But you know something, ma'am? You wouldn't give it up for anything, would
No,
you?
I wouldn't. Because
There you go.
we're blessed
None of us
so
would.
much.
None of us would. But that's one of the things
I had to
that.
ask the church for help at Christmas time because
Right.
we were over the limit on Bob's eye drops, or
Yeah.
$1,300 a month.
You know, as she mentioned earlier, the resources that are available. If you
We
can you
need to
email
know
me,
those.
email me, and I will be happy to look at your particular community and send you somebody you can go see that can help you with that. And I will do that.
The moral
I
of the
will do
story is
that.
that y'all aren't out there by
I
yourselves,
know.
and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it feels like it so many times because we don't know. You know, I tell people I lost my vision at 31 years old. I was a combat medic in the Army, and it's one of those things where you know you think, well, life's over. You know, what am I going to do? I knew nothing about this world. But you know something? I was called to it, and darn it, I'm going to do the best that I can to serve it. So.
And
I'm
you
glad
do.
you're here.
You have
You
a
do.
question?
I'm gonna go back to high school. Our kids, especially these kids, do not know how to handle money. That's
Right.
wrong. Okay, so how can we in the school system, we're supposed to be teaching financial literacy, it's not happening.
That's right.
It's not happening.
Right.
Okay? And you know, when they turn 18, they can get their check.
Yeah.
Well, I would give them a check because they don't know how to spend it. They don't
Right.
know.
That's
they don't
right.
have a budget. They don't have
No.
anything.
So,
they're still keeping.
I've got a great answer for that one.
So you tell me, how could I do?
So if you go on to our website or just email me, I'm Nancy. Yep,
Yes,
it's on the back there. We have on our website, which is nationaldisabilityinstitute.org, I think.
I think. I don't know. I just.
You can Google
I Google it. We have lots of resources, but if you email me, I'll help you find them more streamlined.
Good.
That are financial capability
Nancy, right?
tools, Nancy, and they're written at a 4th grade level.
Yeah, they're
So,
great.
so they're not written for youth. but they're just written at a 4th grade level. So universal design so that anybody can understand them.
And also, you know, Consumer Protection Financial or Consumer Financial
CFP.
Protection Bureau, yeah, they have some great toolkits out there where they have all these exercises and stuff.
They do.
And so it's one of those things you
And-
might be able to do it, you know, yourself to be able to
Right.
say, but I guarantee you there's something out there.
And also
There's an
FDIC,
agency.
the FDIC,
Yeah.
the
FDIC?
whatever deposit insurance company.
Yeah,
federal
and they have a good one.
They
And
have
also,
Money Smart online.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have Money Smart online, and you can download their stuff for free, and they've got a curriculum specifically for youth.
And I know that was My Money, something called MyMoney.com.
Yep.
Is that
Yep.
.com?
.gov.
.gov, yeah.
MyMoney.gov.
That's great too, my
That's a
money.
really good.
Yeah, that
and
is
it's
really good.
compartmentalized now,
Right.
for youth.
So MyMoney.gov for our population.
I have one more too,
And Wells Fargo has a
NEFE.org
curriculum
has a
too,
whole,
that's jerks that
National
didn't-
Endowment, I know it, National Endowment for Financial Education, NEFE.org.
And also, you know something, anybody who attends this session, and if you fill out the cards that Heather gave, we'll be more than happy to do free financial coaching
Yes,
to anybody who attended this session.
yes,
Aw.
call us, yeah, we'll send you the information,
Good job.
definitely,
Nice.
definitely will do.
It'll be
And
good
you know-
practice for some of our folks who's on internships, so.
It'll be wonderful, it'll be wonderful.
Does
And
anybody
you know,
have any other questions?
Thank you.
can I speak to her about the high school? You wanna hear something? So my son is in high school, and he signs up for the financial literacy course. It's not mandatory, but they had one available. So he knows what I do, and the kids help out in the office sometimes. So he's going to this course, and he goes, he was like, Mom, he came home, and he says, you know what we're learning? He said, all we do is play stock games all day long. They learned about investments, and he's like, Mom, we're not learning. Both my kids have probably almost an 800 credit score, because I just think that's very important, and I'm very proud of that. But he says they don't teach them about bank accounts, credit scores. You know, where am I going to get that? Let's think about where I'm going to get that income before I start, investing. So they're addressing that in legislation right now in Florida, and I'm pretty sure it passed. That they're going to make it so it is part of the curriculum. They are, but I don't think they made it mandatory, did they?
Governor DeSantis right now has on his website, there's a section in there where educators and what they're going to make some changes to the state standards. So we can put our voice in there as to what we feel is important to be part of those state standards, and we need to be putting that in there.
That's right, and you know
Yeah,
something,
thanks
if
for
y'all
saying
don't
that. That's
speak
right,
up,
you're right.
that's right, if y'all
Definitely.
don't speak up when you have the opportunities to speak
It's
up
now.
on stuff like this, you can't gripe about it.
Yeah,
when-
so time is
When
now.
it doesn't
Right.
have something, that's
You're
right,
right.
that's right.
And actually, a good resource for that is financial Florida Prosperity. Florida Prosperity Partnerships.
Right,
I would say
FPP.
FTP, I had to think about it. Florida Prosperity Partnerships. If you email them or you want to talk through them, they're a big advocate for Florida. And if you go to their website, they have a lot of the stuff that she's talking about is on the other website. And they're as a group advocating for this. So that was a great point. Great point. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, we'll be around, stop us in the hallway, pet the dog, pet Heather, whatever.